I'll just wait one more minute for more people to take their seats. Welcome. Due to a medical emergency, Adrienne Cooper will not be joining us this evening. In her place, Bela Schafter Gottesman and Benjamin Schafter will sing this evening's musical selection. We extend our deepest appreciation to Bela Schafter Gottesman, who will be performing the musical selection which opens our program. Mein Chaverter Minze, my friend Minze. Bela is the composer and lyricist of this song, which is based on the true story of her friend Minze during World War II. Bela is the aunt of the accompanist and soloist this evening, Benjamin Schafter. We are grateful that she and her nephew were able to step forward at the last minute and perform in Adrienne Cooper's place. Thank you.
Hello. This song, Chaverter Minze, I hope it was not no special reason or purpose. It just came out naturally, and it took on a life of its own, so to say. It's performed with Holocaust memorials, and the feminist movement took it on as a symbolic figure. I will sing it in my natural dialect. It's Dormied, Sabermied.
When I break through the portals of time and space, you stand before me in a faraway mist. And from behind the barriers, you smile an eternal smile at me, my childhood friend, Minze. Raised together on the same street, children wrapped up in games and fun. With pockets full of laughter and joy, the whole world was open and waiting for us. Who could have known or even dreamed that right on our doorstep was the darkest night, and our Steingasse in a river of flame would be swallowed up in a black abyss, my childhood friend Minze. Some to the hell of Transnistria were sent, others in stifling ghettos were trapped. Some beyond the Dniester fled, you were shot down on the way. After the war, I passed by your house, an empty, desolate ruin it was. And on the steps, a gray shadow huddled. Your mother, but you were not there. My childhood friend.
Von Ort und von Zeit stehst die verlieren, verleiteter Weib. Hinter die Zahmen verlegte Abgier, die schmechelst dann ewig und schmechelst sie nicht, man hat sie nicht. Gewachsene Nägel mit derselbiger Gaut, Kinder zerflogen in ihren Spaß. Kerschenes Film mit Gelächter im Frei, die gute Welt war in Zoffen Grey. Wer wird gerecht sich auf viele getracht, als nun bei der Schwell war verfinstere Nacht. In der Steingasse, ja feuriger Strom, wir werden verschwingen in finsteren Ton. Meine Chaverter Minze. Wer in Gehenden Transnister verschickt, wer in die Ghettos verzahnt und versteckt, wer sie samt Laufen über Nester so hält, Liebesgefallen erschossen in Weg. Noch der Malchume geht aus bei dein Haus, bist wie a halbe in heule Seite so. In auf die Treppe sitzt verjuret in der Groß, a Schutten, dann Mann, nur die bist nicht du, man Chaverter Minze.
shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of paths to dwell in. Isaiah 58:12. The Heschel School has had Holocaust commemoration programming for our children under the thoughtful direction of founder Peter Geffen for many years. This is our first program for parents. For those of you not familiar with the day, there's a darkened room with a Ner Tamid, eternal flame, guarded by middle schoolers, as well as slides of photographs of Jewish life before the war. The most moving part of this children's commemoration has always been the wall of remembrance. Against the wall, this one, Heschel families display pictures and list names of family members that were killed during the Holocaust. Parents and children light yahrzeit lamps in memory of family members and in remembrance of the Jewish communities which perished. I'm always struck by the workings of tradition when I see how many of the names memorialized on the wall are the same as those of Heschel parents or their children. We and our children represent a living memorial and the vital continuity of so many lives permanently and cruelly taken. Our community and our children help reestablish the wholeness of the Jewish world as they pursue their studies at the Heschel School. This year, we invite all of the members of our community to provide pictures of their families to be included in the permanent slide presentation at our Children's Holocaust Commemoration. And our program provides details for you. In order to keep this evening as part of our permanent memory, it is being videotaped for our library. The Jewish Braille Institute is recording the evening and making tapes available for the blind and visually impaired. This program was made possible by the vision and hard work of the committee members consisting of Heschel staff and parents listed in the program. And a special thanks to Georgia Pollack, whose hard work and commitment made it possible. We are honored and blessed this evening to have two extraordinary speakers and grandparents of Heschel children. Our first speaker, Vlatka Meed. Vlatka Meed was a teenager named Fagel when the war broke out. She was active as a youth organizer and became a member of the underground. Because of her Aryan appearance and fluent Polish, she was able to pass as a non-Jew and smuggle arms into the ghetto and helped many Jews escape. As one of the few survivors of the leadership of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, she took on the mission of witnessing and teaching. In addition to her many accomplishments as a writer, speaker, and educator, she and her husband were instrumental in the creation of the Holocaust Museum. Her book about her experiences, called On Both Sides of the Wall, has been published in Yiddish, English, Hebrew, Spanish, and Japanese. Her husband, Benjamin Meed, is president of the American Gathering of the Jewish Holocaust Survivors in Wyboro. They have two children, Ann Schertzer and Stephen Meed, born in the United States. Two of their grandchildren, Jessica Meed, class of 1992, and Chava Meed, class of 1995, graduated from the Abraham Joshua Heschel School, and the third grandchild, Jonathan Meed, will be starting first grade at the Heschel School in the fall of 1997. And I am very, very pleased to introduce you to Vlatka Meed.
I prepared a very small introduction, but somehow you took it away from me. Nevertheless, I would like to share it with you. I was asked by my dear daughter-in-law, Rita, to share a few war experiences with you tonight. I must admit that I was reluctant to undertake this assignment. More than a half-century has passed, and still it is not easy to separate thoughts from feelings. But then, how can one miss the unique opportunity to be able to express appreciation and thanks for helping our two dear children, Jessica and Kara, graduate of the HaShoah School, to learn more about Jewish identity and Jewish heritage, which are so close to the hearts and minds of their parents and grandparents. Our heartiest thanks to the HaShoah School and to all committees. Thank you. Today, we are witnessing an increasing interest in our tragic past. The number of books, conferences, Holocaust centers, museums are growing. After the collapse of communism, new archives became available in Moscow, Lithuania, Ukraine. Classified intelligence, war reports are surfacing, and scholars are doing research, discovering new material, not only about the perpetrators, about the killing machinery, with the participation of the Germans' industry in population, but also about the behavior during the war years of the so-called neutral countries, Switzerland, Portugal, Sweden. The echo of our past is still vibrating in the air. Here in our country, Holocaust education is finding its way little by little into the schools and colleges. 18 states, among them New York, Illinois, Florida, New Jersey, Tennessee, Virginia, Ohio, have mandated or recommended Holocaust studies in their schools. There are new lesson plans, publishing by Holocaust centers, by museums, by organizations, a huge body of Holocaust material. And yet, we know that the majority of students in this country are still woefully unaware of the Holocaust, its history, as well as its impact on the social, political, and cultural world we live in. And those who do learn, how will they see our past? Will they learn only statistic, frightening number of deaths, the clinical aspect of planned destruction? Or will they be able to see beyond the numbers of mass murder, the victims as people, as individuals who struggle to remain human in a world which was so inhuman? Will they be able to understand that behind the horrible hunger, terror, killing was also a life filled with meaning, with dignity, even with holiness, with thousands of instances of resistance of which still too little is known. The life of the individual was ground to dust in the gigantic murder machine and is still waiting to be raised out of the abyss of death to be seen in its full light. Last October, I participated in the International Conference on the Holocaust Education at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. A few hundred educators, scholars, and community leaders from many countries came to exchange views, to elaborate on aspects of Holocaust studies today. I listened to the scholars about the newly discovered details of the behavior of the perpetrators. After all these years, a half a century passed, and for me, the survivor, it is still difficult to comprehend how German contractors could have presented their plans for annihilation openly, in a business-like way, competing with one another to build gas chambers cheaper, better, and faster. Experts calculated the effectiveness of various kinds of gas. German train officials haggled over a few pennies more per Jewish head, threatening delays in providing transport to the death camps. Yes, not only Nazis, not only SS death squads, but ordinary German citizens of all walks of life took part in the Jewish annihilation. While hearing the lectures, my mind constantly wandered back to the shattering days of the ghetto, and splinters of memory came into my mind. I saw the crowded ghetto street with children swollen from hunger, my neighbor selling saccharin and watching for approaching Germans, while her daughter held illegal classes for students. Emaciated men with half-covered faces, with prayer books rushing to secret synagogues. My own house, the mother, eyes swollen from starvation, hiding a slice of bread from us hungry children to pay the teacher who came to prepare my brother for his bar mitzvah, which he never lived to see. Then in my mind's eye emerged the 14-year-old twins, Zosha and Paula Lipschitz, with whom I walked together in the youth underground. The girls were the souls of the so-called children corners, which had replaced the closed ghetto schools. Together with other youngsters, the girls were diligently teaching children to write and to sing. They staged performances of plays they themselves had learned before the war. They turned overnight into educators. They brought a bit of joy, of spirit, to the starving little ones. I still see faces of friends, both young and older, whom I met at secret ghetto meetings, the organizers of illegal cultural activities in the ghetto, until they all were caught up in the Nazi vice and sent to the gas chamber of Treblinka. Yes, it seems to me that this was also resistance. To survive as people in a spirit that refused to be crushed, this was the soil in which the seeds of our later unorganized resistance took hold. How can we assure that their lives should not be lost in the general number of statistics, to be deplored and then filed away as nightmares without comprehension? Then the final solution. The carefully coordinated machinery of mass murder went into operation. As I said, we have today a lot of research material about the perpetrators, the killers. Books written by prominent historians such as Christopher Browning, Ordinary Men, Reserve Battalion 101, and lately Daniel Goldhagen, Hitler's willing executioners, are making history today, even in Germany. We now know how many Jews were murdered, from which countries, which cities, in which camps. All this after 50 years is more or less known. But what is not fully known is again the life. The life and behavior, the struggle of our people during those trying days of blockades and deportation. I still see them, our people, filled with fear of the unknown, walking at gunpoint to the Umschlagplatz, deportation point. Yet even then, many still nourish the futile hope that they would survive. Even I, who knew from the walk in the underground the actual destination of the trains, could not believe when my mother, brother, and sister were taken away that they would be killed. I found myself hoping that perhaps, after all, they had been sent, as the German claimed then, to another city for a settlement. How could our people, who for generations believed and cherished human values, imagine such evil as that of an enemy who planned our total annihilation, destruction? How could we grasp right away the scope of huge killing apparatus? When the free world, which already had received reports of what was going on, closed its eyes in order not to see the smoke of crematoria, Our people struggled to remain human until the end. It is worthwhile to remember that in the camps in Estonia, inmates secretly observed Yom Kippur in organized prayer groups. In Varvara camp, illegal cultural gatherings took place, even in the pit of hell in Auschwitz. Surrounded by the smell of burning flesh, members of the Sonderkommando burned notes, testimonies next to the ovens, so that if everyone perished, the written word would tell what happened to them. At this crucial time, the ghetto youth came into the forefront of our lives. Not many remained in the ghetto, remnants of the pre-war youth movement, Zionist, Bundist, socialist, religious one, young idealistic believers in humanity, in justice, dreamers of a land of their own. They formed the new coordinated Jewish fighter organizations, with Mordechai Anilevich as the commander. They, the young, became the leaders, the decisive voices in the ghetto. This historic role of those determined, heroic youths has yet to be fully told. Don't let yourself be taken away. Resist was their call. It was my destiny to walk with them. Together with a few others, I was assigned to get out of the ghetto to live among the Poles and to try to obtain weapons. But how could we get them? This was our biggest concern, biggest problem. The ghetto did not have any arms. We turned to the outside world, to the Polish underground. The response was pitiful. We tried the black market, but denunciation, arrest, and death. When I came with a small smuggled-in parcel of dynamite to one of the fighters' groups, my friends would surround me, their eyes burning with excitement and interest, and they would repeatedly ask me about the life outside the ghetto, our relation with the Poles, when will we receive help, more arms, hiding places for the remaining ghetto children. And I would stand there for long, unable to give them the answers they so desperately sought. We had to find our own way. Still to my mind is a big factory furnace on the Polish side, where Michael Klepfish, our so-called armaments engineer, and I succeeded in bribing the watchman to let us test our first own-made Molotov cocktail, and it worked. Feverish activities started. Primitive factories were installed in attics in the ghetto. Money and jewelry were collected. Bakers secretly supplied bread to the 22 fighters units. One incident stands out in my mind. After a long search outside the ghetto, we were able to secure 10 pounds of dynamite, and I was entrusted to smuggle it into the ghetto. Through a secret telephone, the underground was informed and arranged for some of my friends to wait for the package at a location at the ghetto wall, where Polish smugglers sometimes bribed the guards to allow them to bring food into the ghetto. Outside on the Polish side stood a ladder at the wall, and the Polish ringleader waited and took money. He was bribed, and we, the few smugglers, were waiting for our turn. It was necessary to climb quickly across, cross over the top of the wall, and descend to the ghetto side. As I reached the top, shots rang out from the streets. A German patrol was approaching. In an instant, the smugglers snatched the ladder away and took cover. And there I was, sitting on top of the wall, holding my parcel. The wall was over 10 feet high. I was afraid to jump, fearing that the explosive might go off. The shooting came closer, and I was sure that that is mine now. Just then, I heard shouts from the Jewish side of the wall. "Wait, we will help." 3 of my ghetto friends came running to the wall. They had watched me from their hiding place. In a moment, they had formed a human ladder, snatched my bundle, and helped me descend. In no time, we ran away from the wall. But others of my colleagues were not as lucky. On my mission at night, I could hear the sounds of hammering. Jews were building bunkers and hiding places. Somewhere a shot rang out. Young people were learning to handle firearms. The whole ghetto was preparing to face a new deportation. And the hours struck on Passover, April 19, 1943, when the German soldiers in full gear marched into the Warsaw ghetto to make it Judenrein. The streets were empty. Suddenly they came under fire. From buildings, from windows, from rooftops of houses. The Jews were shooting. The Germans withdrew. They set up artillery outside the ghetto wall, and from there they systematically bombarded the Jewish houses. The ghetto did not yield. Inexperienced, untrained civilians fought against a well-armed Wehrmacht, tanks, artillery, and planners. Block after block, house after house were set on fire. The fire that swept the ghetto turned night into day. The flames, the heat, the suffocated smoke drove the people from their hiding places. Men, women, and children jumped out of windows and ran through burning ruins, looking for a place where they could breathe. But where could they go? Where everything around them was burning. And in the midst of this flaming hell, the resistance went on until the ghetto was reduced to charred rubble. During the uprising, the Jewish underground on the Polish side, only a handful of them, sent radio messages to the free world, to our representative in the Polish government in London. We pleaded for ammunition, we begged for help, but in vain. True, a war was being fought on many fronts, but our Jewish front was entirely overlooked. Our people who put so much hope in the free world were forsaken, abandoned in their last final struggle. Here in this country, I have privilege for years to be involved with a unique educational program on Holocaust and Jewish resistance. Every year, on the way to Israel, where the seminar takes place, a group of American teachers who undertake to implement Holocaust studies in their classes start in Poland. I stand with them at the Ghetto Memorial in Warsaw and always wonder, what can the figures of the ghetto fighters carved in granite tell them about what really happened in those terrifying days? I look at the faces on the monument and I see the faces of my friends, the young fighters, and I think, how can we help the youth of today? Try to understand our ghetto youth. Their thoughts, their beliefs, their determination, which shaped their personalities and which helped to shape our history. Our American teachers go to the former death camps. They walk on the roads which led to the crematoria. They touched history. They came to Treblinka, a large, broad plain surrounded by green forest, where there is now a huge field of stones, large ones, small ones, 17,000 stones. On one side stretches a row of blocks, an illusion of the former railroad tracks. Here Jews from Warsaw and other areas were brought, and here they were gassed and burned. Over 800,000. You no longer see any gas chambers, no crematoria. They were all destroyed. The German even plowed up the soil. Today it is a museum with maps and numbers and primarily a huge field with stones with names of cities and countries reaching to the sky with a mute accusation. And suddenly my mind sees among the stones my non-ghetto people, men and women with bundles, with children at their sides. Among them, I think I recognized my mother, brother, sister, friends, neighbors. They all feel the large field of Treblinka. My heart stops. Through the lump in my throat, I want to cry out, to assure them that they are not abandoned in a land in Poland, which is now almost without Jews. They are not alone. They go on living inside us, in our minds, in our hearts, in the memory of our people with a muted cry, remember, remember. For it is this memory which is the ringing warning to all people for all times. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Dr. Judah Nadich, has been Rabbi Emeritus of the Park Avenue Synagogue of New York City since September 1st, 1987, having served as rabbi in this post since 1957. During World War II, he served as an Army chaplain, first in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, then spending 3.5 years in the European Theater of Operations as senior Jewish chaplain with the American Army and as deputy to the theater chaplain. After the German concentration camps were captured, General Eisenhower appointed him his advisor on Jewish affairs. He retired from active duty in 1946 with the rank of lieutenant colonel. Rabbi Nadich is the author, editor, and translator of several books and a contributor to numerous magazines and publications. He has served as president and trustee of many Jewish rabbinical and social service organizations, including the Rabbinical Assembly of America. He's married to the former Martha Hadassah Ribola and is the father of 3 daughters, Leah, Shira, and Naomi, and the grandfather of 8 grandchildren. A graduate of the class of 1996. Rabbi Nadich and his wife Hadassah have been deeply involved and committed to the Abraham Joshua Heschel School since its inception and have been very important contributors both as board member, as advisors, and as trusted colleagues and friends to all of us at the Heschel School.
Express my thanks to the committee for giving me the high honor of being on the same program with Meed. She is one of the truly great Jewish heroines, and all of us who have had the privilege of hearing her tonight know now a little bit about what she endured and about what she achieved on behalf of our people in Warsaw. For me, it is an honor to have my name in any small way associated with hers. I want to express my appreciation also to the faculty and to the principal of the Heschel School for for being the great school that it is, for giving such an extraordinary general and Jewish education to so many children year after year, among whom, as we have heard, my grandson Gideon Levin and my grandson Ben Levin. This is one of the truly great Jewish day schools, and you parents should join me in expressing your thankfulness to this extraordinary school. Now, my friends, I should like to take you back with me for a brief while to the summer of 1945. World War II is over. The concentration camps have been liberated, and the world is rejoicing. The American Army had several years before made plans for what was to happen once Germany would be conquered, for the civil government that would be created by the American Army in Germany, and among other details, what would happen to the survivors who might be found in the concentration camps on German soil. The plan for the latter was a very simple one. The camps would be liberated, the survivors would be sent to their homes within 90 days. And that is exactly what happened. At least it happened for the few survivors in the camps who had come from Greece, from France, from Belgium, and elsewhere. Those few were home indeed in 90 days. But the great majority of the people found in the concentration camps were Jews. Jews mostly from Poland, but also some Jews from Lithuania and Latvia and Estonia, and from Hungary and Romania. They had no homes to go back to, because the homes and the businesses that had once been theirs had been taken by their former neighbors, who in many instances had turned them in from their hiding places to the German conquerors. A few Jews tried to go back, and they were beaten up for their pains. And indeed, in one Polish city, there was a small pogrom against the Jews who tried to come back and claim the homes and the business properties that were theirs. So here there were these Jewish survivors who had no homes to go back to. The American Army plans hadn't figured on that. And soon stories began appearing in the American newspapers written by their foreign correspondents, their war correspondents, that there were thousands, tens of thousands of Jews still living in horrible conditions in Germany. They were liberated, to be sure, but the conditions of their life were miserable. And nothing was being done for them by the American Army. You see, the American Army hadn't counted on that. President Truman had read the stories of the war correspondents. He appointed a commission headed by the Dean of the Law School of the University of Pennsylvania, Earl G. Harrison, to go to Europe, to go to Germany specifically, and find out how much truth there was in these stories. Dean Harrison came to Germany. He visited the camps, spoke with the survivors through interpreters, and came back to Washington and wrote his report. General Eisenhower at Forward Army Headquarters in Frankfurt in Germany received a cable sent by President Truman. The cable told him that Dean Harrison's committee had visited the Jewish survivors of the concentration camps liberated by the American army in Germany, and had returned and had given a report that he had read and that had shaken him gravely. And he said, I list a few of the conclusions for you to look at. I shall be sending you the entire report immediately. Meanwhile, I should like to know at once, what do you intend to do about it, General Eisenhower? General Eisenhower was taken aback, but he sent a cable to his commander-in-chief, to President Truman, in which he said that it will be his aim to clear the situation as quickly as possible, that he is appointing his senior American Army Jewish chaplain in Europe to the post of advisor to him on Jewish affairs, and if President Truman desired, the President could appoint a civilian advisor whom General Eisenhower would be pleased to accept. I was that senior American Army Jewish chaplain in the European theater. I arrived in Northern Ireland during the summer of 1942 to serve with the first American troops ordered to Europe. When they emptied out for the invasion of North Africa, I was ordered to London, and I covered the British Isles alone for a while, and later more Jewish chaplains came for 2 years, and then I was commanded to go into Normandy, the French beach of Omaha, and soon afterwards, when Paris was liberated, I came to Paris, to American headquarters there, and I had been serving in Paris for a year and visiting Jewish chaplains of the frontline divisions. Now I was ordered forward to Frankfurt to serve in this new post. I prepared for myself a list of questions whose answers I would seek, and then I went on my first round of displaced persons camps, DP camps. The Jews had been moved from the concentration camps to these other camps, which had originally housed foreign workers who had come gladly from Poland, from Croatia, from other countries to help in the German war effort, receiving high salaries as their reward. They took the places in the factories of Germany of the men who had been taken into the German army. I visited a number of the camps on my first round. Most of them were located in Bavaria, in southeastern Germany. And in each of the camps, I discovered that there were Jews who had formed a committee to be the spokesmen, the representatives of their fellow Jews in the camps. I met with them and I asked them the questions whose answers I sought. Food, how was the food, how much food, what kind of clothing, shoes, medical attention, religious affairs, what did they need for daily occupations. And I got the answers. They needed everything, in every category. They didn't have enough food. It wasn't the right kind of food. They had suffered from malnutrition for years, and they needed much more good food than they had been given. They needed clothing. They needed shoes. And they needed, many of them, such things as musical instruments. They had been professional violinists and pianists, and they wanted to play again, but they needed instruments. And there were many who wanted to work again, not to spend all day doing nothing. And I decided on that first round of the camps, before I came back to Frankfurt and wrote a report with General Eisenhower, that I would go into Dachau, the concentration camp not far from Munich. I wanted to see for myself at least a little bit of what the Jews to whom I had been speaking had themselves experienced. Dachau was still as it had been when it had been liberated. It was not cleaned up, it was not prettified. I came into Dachau and walked around, saw the many barracks with the wooden bunk beds, one on top of another. I came into a large building and there were a number of hooks. And the signs in German, please hang your clothing on these hooks and try to remember exactly the location of your clothes so that you may reclaim them after you have been taking a shower, after you take your shower. And then I went into the next room, the supposed shower room. I saw that I was now inside a gas chamber. I looked above and I saw the opening through which the crystals of destructive poison were placed, the Zyklon B crystals, which emitted quickly a gas that stunned, suffocated, and killed anyone who inhaled the fumes. I looked at the door through which I had just come, that heavy metal door. And on the inside of the door were scratches. The door was covered with scratches. And I wondered for a moment, where did these scratches come from? And then, of course, it came to me. These were the scratches from the fingernails of thousands of Jews who, desperately trying to claw their way out, away from the choking gas, were of course unable to, but there were the fingernails. I walked out of the door of the gas chamber on the other side into a large chamber in which there were 4 tremendous furnaces. I looked into the furnaces, into the maw of these great stoves. I knew what they were for. The bodies of tens of thousands of Jews who had been gassed in the next room were brought here and placed into these ovens to be burned. I went around the back of the furnaces. There was an opening through which the ash could be removed. And I saw there still was some human ash on the floor of the furnaces. And suddenly my eye was caught by a number of sacks against the wall, most of them tied, but a few of them still open, untied. I went over to look into those sacks to see what was in them. I looked into an open sack. I saw the same gray ash that I had seen on the floors of the furnaces. On the front of each of these sacks there was stamped in German, fertilizer. Fertilizer to be used to enrich German soil so that farmers could raise more and better food for the Nazis. That's how your people and my people ended up in the gas chambers so their ash could be used for fertilizer. I rolled up the sleeve of my army uniform and I plunged my arm deep down into that sack, up to my elbow, and I ground the sack into the palm of my hand so that I should never, never forget what I had seen at Dachau. I came back to Frankfurt. I wrote my report. I came into the office of General Eisenhower, and first he asked me to tell him in my own words what I had seen, what needed to be done. I did. I handed him my written report. I must say that whatever I had recommended was swiftly embodied in an order issued by General Eisenhower to the commanders on the lower levels. If all of his commands had been carried out as issued, the situation would have swiftly improved. Unfortunately, there was a great distance between Frankfurt Army headquarters and the lieutenants and sergeants of the American Army on the levels of giving provisions to the Jewish survivors. And I had to go around to the camps again and again to come back and report to General Eisenhower or to his chief of staff, General Walter Beadle Smith. I was once called into the office of General Eisenhower and asked, we get reports of Jews coming across the borders from Austria into Germany. We understand that they are Polish Jews. Polish Jews who had been shipped by the Russians when they had a falling out with their German allies, and when war was declared between the two former allies, the Russian army had shipped large numbers of Jews from Poland back to Siberia, not because they wanted to help the Jews, but because the Jews were in their way, in the way of the advancing Russian armies. And now the Jews had returned from Siberia to their home cities and had discovered that their loved ones were gone, that all of Polish soil was one vast Jewish cemetery. and if they dared to reclaim that which had been theirs, their homes, their shops, their stores, they were attacked and killed. And soon they began flowing across the borders from Poland. Before the borders were tightened, while the borders were still fluid, they were flowing across the borders from Poland into Czechoslovakia, from Czechoslovakia into Austria, from the Russian zone of Austria into the American zone of Austria, and then they were coming into the American zone of Germany. And many of them sought to enter the DP camps, which were under the command of the American Army. I was asked, who were these people? What did they want? What should the American Army do? I told the truth. I told the general that these were Jews who had suffered miserable lives. They had come back to Poland to find their families destroyed, killed, annihilated, their homes gone, no way of earning a living. And now they were just running, on the run, anywhere, but not in Poland, not the vast Jewish cemetery that was now Poland. And I pleaded with the general to open the DP camps. General Eisenhower issued an order that the displaced persons camps under American command should permit